Some people also wonder, as defense counsel for Nnamdi Kanu, why did you embark on the protest?
Defense counsel to Nnamdi Kanu has not lost his right as a Nigerian. I know the rules of the bar, the rules of such deeds, and so on and so forth. I wasn't in the protest to tell the court on how to make rulings or how to render judgments or to express opinion on how the court is conducting the proceedings. I was in the protest to express my views to the government of my country that your prosecutorial policy as deployed and levied against my fellow citizen, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, is wrong in judiciary to begin with. The protest was directed against the executive decision of the federal government to prosecute Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. Protest is a communicative measure taken by citizens in a democracy to express their discontent to their government. If you lose the right of protest to your government, peaceful protest, then what is the essence of democracy? I won 3 victories from Nnamdi Kanu. One before the Abia State High Court, one before the Federal High Court in Romaya, and one before the Enugu State High Court. The Southeast will continue to struggle politically. Unfortunately, we are politically disadvantaged in this country since the end of the war. So IPOB numbers in the millions of members and followers and sympathizers. So for any discussion of how to move Southeast forward, I think there has to be a consideration that they be brought to the table. And how best can you bring him to the table than bringing their leader, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu? Peter Obi has publicly called for a halt to the prosecution of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. So why do they keep looking for him? The buck stops at President Tinubu's table. If he does not free Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, he can forget the votes of people of Southeast. Unless there's another plan. You're not going to win Southeast without freeing Mazen Nnamdi Kanu.
Right at the correctional facility in Kuje.
Yeah.
What was the experience like?
The experience was traumatic. Anybody that tells you otherwise is in denial. It actually didn't start at Kuje. Kuje is the second phase in the whole saga. It started at Abattoir, the notorious detention facility at the SARS off Gusape, that area. That's where it started on Monday, the other Monday, 20th. So it was more traumatic at the police cell than it was at Kuje. So going to Kuje was more of graduating from a very terrible situation to something a bit less terrible. At the SARS detention facility in Abuja, overnight, we were cramped into a 14 by 12 room. All of us, all 13 detainees, myself, Prince Emmanuel Kanu, and the others, were cramped in that room. It has only one toilet, and it has like 3 or 4 steps that are supposed to double for bed. There's nothing there, so you just have to lay down. So it didn't, contain all of us in terms of lying down. So most of us had to sit it out the whole night, and that most of us, included me particularly, I couldn't find myself lying on that, hard concrete floor overnight. So I just sat it out, almost in a fetal position like this, and it was quite traumatic. About 7:30 in the morning, the following day, they came for us. And of course, we didn't have telephone privileges, so nobody knew where we were. We were taken initially to the police CID headquarters in Gariki, and they led people to believe that's where we were. So somewhere along the line, in the late of the night, when it was about 7:30 in the evening, they just ordered us out. Came out, they deployed tear gas against us. It was very perplexing and baffling. I don't know why we would deploy tear gas against people you already have in custody at the force headquarters. And one of them was deployed very close to me. So the entire fume in great volumes, got inhaled into my lungs, and I lost my voice. I'm still trying to get my voice back. That was the second one that was deployed at me personally. The first one was at the point of arrest or interdiction. So all of that got taken in, and I think I'm struggling with some kind of respiratory issues right now. I just came from my doctor, and that's the diagnosis. You can see the cast where they, access my veins to do some intravenous treatment. So that's how it happened then. They took us from Abattoir, that is the SARS, early in the morning, around 7:30, and drove us all the way to Kuje, and nobody told us where we were going. We were all perplexed and confused, and that we had no way of informing our people where we were. And they were looking for us all over Abuja until we got to Kuje. So you begin to wonder, while you get arrested in Wuse and Otako and get taken to Kuje magistrate for arraignment the following day, when we have about 20 or maybe 15 magistrate courts closer to the location by arrest. So your guess is as good as mine. So when we got there, the magistrate wouldn't let us say any word. I told the magistrate I'm a lawyer. He said, well, I know who you are. There was another lawyer amongst us, one barrister, Okere. He wouldn't let him speak. He said, well, you will not address me as lawyers because you are not dressed. We said, okay, we are suspects. Can we take a plea and apply for bail? He said, well, somebody got up and said, one lady lawyer got up and said, their counsel is on the way. Maybe my lord, whatever, your worship, can we take a stand down for 20 minutes? Their counsel, Barrister Maswi, is on the way. He just shook his head and got angry. I don't know what made him angry, whether it was contrived or real. He just ordered us remanded till Friday to Kuje Correctional Facility. That's what happened. Very baffling. So we were headed away from the courtroom. We were all confused at how the justice system got so dispensed so unjustly and so quickly that a suspect, a defendant, no more had any right to take a plea. That's a basic right you have when you are produced in court. Tell me what I did so I can answer guilty or not guilty. Guilty, you are sentenced. It ends. Not guilty, then you apply for bail. Either your bail application is denied or is granted. But not giving you or affording you the opportunity to take that plea is the most egregious assault at the constitutional requirement of fair hearing.
All right. One is tempted to ask, why were you arrested and where were you arrested?
They said we disobeyed order of a public officer. By interpretation, it meant there was some court order against the protest that we ostensibly or allegedly disobeyed. The order was never served. Before the protest, the initiator of the protest was Omoyele Sowore. I supported the protest as a Nigerian, as an upstanding Nigerian, as an Igbo man, as somebody who believes in justice. I supported it openly. Okay, I went around with Sowore to drum up support for the protest. It was supposed to be peaceful protest. And we did apply to the police, and it was approved. They went to court to get a court order to stop the protest in its tracks. The judge refused. They pressured, so the judge gave a limited order that the protest could go on. But the judge created a perimeter beyond which the protest cannot go. And it was named, in particular, Shehu Shagari Way, the 3-arm zone that includes the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Aso Rock and National Assembly. That was all. I was arrested behind Transcorp Hilton Hotel along with others. Sowore was with me. I don't know how he managed to escape in that whole billow of smoke, of tear gas and all that. I think there was a vehicle that was passing by. He managed to jump into the vehicle. The driver opened the door and he jumped in, and something like that. Otherwise, he would have been arrested on the spot. I was with him shoulder to shoulder. So we were around the intersection of Ahmad Bello and Adetugumba Mola in Wuse. He fell outside the perimeter that the court ordered that you shouldn't go. Right around where you turn onto a small street to go into the EFCC. And those two hotels that have the same name on the left, that was where we were. I was there. My vehicle was parked. My driver was inside. I came out and I was calling Sowore on the phone. He asked me, where are you? I told him where I was. So he kept. The moment he got there, we got together. A small crowd formed around us. People that came with him, and others, and so on and so forth. And we just started shouting, yelling, sloganeering peacefully, free Nnamdi Kanu, free Nnamdi Kanu, free Nnamdi Kanu. I think maybe they had a scout somewhere around there. There was no police inside. There was no police cordon. There was no police contingent anywhere around. But apparently they had a scout. So the scout went all the way to the Hilton, Transport Hilton and Jerry Ghana Junction where they were, and told them that these people are over there yelling the slogan of protest. So they deployed from that side and started pursuing us. They came to us, we didn't go to them. We were way outside the perimeter, 2 kilometers away from the perimeter, beyond which the court order said we shouldn't go. So they brought their violence to us. It was a violent arrest, interdiction, forceful, even though the protesters were under their control because they had so many vehicles and so many well-armed police officers. I don't know what they were doing with loaded weapons, and almost each one of them was carrying canisters of tear gas, and they were shooting this thing indiscriminately to the point that it affected some of them. One of the officers was yelling, take it easy, take it easy. But the ones that had gone mad with impunity and draconism would not listen. They kept shooting and shoving people around and so on and so forth.
Looking at even the perimeter restriction of the court, is it an infringement on your fundamental rights, given the fact that protest is constitutionally guaranteed?
Yes.
So even as the court was limiting it, was it a breach on your own fundamental right?
Now, that order issued from an ex parte application An ex parte application implies that there's a bigger case coming. So we're going to court and we're going to join issues with them in a substantive setting, in an adversarial setting, where they make their case, we make ours. Then the point that you just made will come in. Since when did Nigerians lose their constitutional right to peaceably assemble, their constitutional right to protest and to free speech? Protest is a communicative measure taken by citizens in a democracy to express their discontent to their government. If you lose the right of protest to your government, peaceful protest, then what is the essence of democracy? That is the question that has to be answered, and it will be answered by the court of law. But right now, we are talking to the court of the public opinion. This is a question I want all Nigerians to ponder. Do you think it is right for your government to arrest you, to subdue you so violently, and subject you to a whole week of imprisonment without trial, just because you came out and you told your government, I am not happy with a particular policy, can you please change it? The protest was not directed against the judiciary to begin with. The judiciary does not initiate prosecutions. The protest was directed against the executive decision of the federal government to prosecute Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. Prosecuting someone is different from trying that person. Subjecting you to trial is the duty, and it's within the province of the courts. But to trigger that trial, the executive branch takes a step, and that step is called prosecution. So we were out there to tell President Tinubu, not Justice James Omotosho or the Nigerian Federal High Court. No, we were there to tell President Tinubu, the man you have before the courts under trial did nothing wrong, and the manner by which or in which he was brought into the country does not give you the right to subject him to trial. That is all, pure and simple. That what he was doing, or the enterprise for which you are traducing him and prosecuting him, is an enterprise that is protected under Nigerian law and international law. That enterprise is called self-determination. It's a view, it's a political opinion that may be inconvenient to the government, and that is why the mischief rule in every national law protected it as a political right. If the mischief rule, or people who founded nations didn't think it was wise, they wouldn't have put it there, that you had the right to self-determination. But when the government, your government, in response to that right, seeks to suppress your expression of that right by means of punishment of some sort, that becomes egregious. It becomes a challenge to the entire society to ask whether such is the correct government response in a democracy.
Some people also wonder, as defense counsel for Nnamdi Kanu, why did you embark on the protest?
Defense counsel to Nnamdi Kanu has not lost his right as a Nigerian. I know the rules of the bar, the rules of subjudice, and so on and so forth. I wasn't in the protest to tell the court on how to make rulings, or how to render judgments, or to express opinion on how the court is conducting the proceedings. I was in the protest to express my views to the government of my country, that your prosecutorial policy, as deployed and levied against my fellow citizen, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, is wrong. Stop it and halt it. It's my right to do so, despite the fact that I'm a defense counsel. Some of the most far-reaching reforms we enjoy today in terms of our civic rights, we are pioneered through protests led by lawyers like late Gani Fawemi and others who are still living a life, like people like Femi Falana. Being a lawyer and even participating in a case does not rob you of having an opinion over that case, a opinion you can express publicly without breaching the zone of subjudice that the court would not want you to go. I was careful to walk that thin line, and I was in my proper zone. I didn't breach anything.
And then one is also tempted to ask, going to public protest, does it imply by any stretch of imagination that you've lost confidence in the judiciary?
No.
In the judicial process?
No. I'm an officer in the Temple of Justice. If I tell you I have lost confidence in the judiciary, then I might as well hang my wig and gown and go to the village and maybe begin to farm. Okay? Or begin to go somewhere and become a philosopher. And even lose interest in the entire society. No. I have confidence in the judiciary. I won 3 victories from Nnamdi Kanu. One before the Abia State High Court, one before the Federal High Court in Umuahia, and one before the Enugu State High Court. It is the same judiciary. They have given me a fair shake. I have confidence in the Federal High Court. They've given me a victory. So that underscores my confidence. But it does not mean that I'm naive. It does not mean that I will be blind to the political winds that are pervading the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. There is this palpable political content in it that is far beyond the capacity of judiciary to resolve. And that is why judiciary has been grappling with that case since 2015, going on to 10 years. It's a very tough nut to crack for the judiciary, but very easy nut to crack for the executive branch. It's all politics. So my taking it to the public square to Nigerians was to, awaken the consciousness of Nigerians to see the politics in the case and to lay the blame for the lingering, for this case lingering for so much, lay the blame where it should be laid. The buck stops at the president's table. If President Tinubu directs the Attorney General to exercise the powers of his office under Section 174 of Nigerian Constitution to discontinue this case, it will be over. Pure and simple. That was my goal.